They didn't come back because they truly missed you. They came back because they felt you slowly slipping out of their control. And how you respond in that single moment determines whether you fall back into the same cycle or finally break free for good. If this feels familiar, pause for a moment and ask yourself, have you ever been pulled back in before by a message like this? If the answer is yes, then you already understand how powerful this moment can be. Stay with me, because what follows could be the shift that finally changes that pattern. Silence from a narcissist is rarely the calm, reflective pause it may seem to be on the surface. It is not about them taking time to grow, gain awareness, or genuinely process what happened between you. Instead, it is often a deliberate withdrawal, a space they create not for healing, but for strategy. When they go silent, they are not disconnecting from the dynamic. They are observing it from a distance, watching closely to see how you respond in their absence. This silence can feel confusing because it imitates something healthy. In normal relationships, space can mean emotional regulation, respect, or the need to reset. But here, silence acts more like a tool. It creates uncertainty. It leaves you questioning what went wrong, replaying conversations, and sometimes even blaming yourself. That mental and emotional spiral is not random. It increases your emotional investment while they remain in control without saying anything. During this time, they may also be seeking attention elsewhere, reinforcing their sense of importance while keeping you as an option. The silence becomes a way to reset the power balance. If you chase, reach out, or try to fix things, it confirms to them that they still have influence over you. If you remain quiet, they often see that as a challenge rather than closure. What makes this even more complicated is that their silence can suddenly end without explanation. They may reappear as if nothing happened, expecting access without accountability. This is why it is so important to shift how you interpret their absence. It was not closure. It was not growth. It was a move within a pattern that depends on unpredictability to maintain control. Their return is rarely about real connection, healing, or a sudden realization of your worth. It is much more about reestablishing control over a dynamic they feel is slipping away. When a narcissist reaches out after a period of silence, it often happens at a moment when they sense, directly or indirectly, that you are moving on, becoming less reactive, or no longer revolving around them. That shift threatens the position they once held in your emotional world. What can make this confusing is the way they come back. The message may sound gentle, casual, even slightly vulnerable. It might carry a tone that suggests reflection or regret, but if you look closely, there is usually a lack of real accountability. They are not returning to repair what was broken. They are returning to see if they can still reach you in the same way as before. Control in this situation is not always loud or obvious. It can show up subtly through checking if you will respond quickly, whether you will engage emotionally, or if you are still willing to prioritize them. Even a simple reply from you can signal that the door is not fully closed. And for them, that is often enough to begin rebuilding the pattern. This is why their return can feel so unsettling. It taps into your past connection, your empathy, and your desire for clarity or closure. But their intention is rarely aligned with those needs. Instead, it revolves around regaining a sense of influence, proving to themselves that they still matter in your life and that they can still affect your emotions. Understanding this changes everything because it shifts your focus away from what they might feel and toward what their behavior consistently shows. Emotional reactions are the fuel they seek because reactions are what keep the connection alive, even if that connection is painful, confusing, or one sided. For a narcissist, it is not always about positive attention or affection, it is about impact. If they can still make you feel something intense, anger, sadness, hope, or anxiety, then in their mind, they still have relevance and influence in your world. This is why their outreach after silence is often designed to provoke a response rather than build a genuine conversation. The message might seem simple, but it carries emotional hooks. It can trigger curiosity, reopen old wounds, or reignite the hope that things might be different this time. And the moment you engage emotionally, whether you respond with warmth, frustration, or even closure, you are feeding the very dynamic they rely on. What makes this particularly difficult is that your reaction feels justified. You might feel hurt and want answers. You might feel angry and want to express it, or you might feel relieved and want to reconnect. All of these responses are human and valid, but in this dynamic, they are also signals. Signals that tell them you are still emotionally invested and still responsive to their presence. Even negative reactions can serve their purpose. An argument, a confrontation, or an emotional message still creates engagement. It pulls you back into a cycle where your energy becomes centered around them again. And that shift from your growth back to their orbit is exactly what maintains their sense of control. Recognizing this does not mean suppressing your emotions, it means choosing where to direct them. Because the moment you stop offering emotional reactions in response to their reach, the dynamic begins to lose its power. The timing of their outreach is almost never random. It may feel sudden to you, like they just thought of you out of nowhere, but in reality, it often aligns with a shift in your life or theirs. They tend to reappear when the emotional distance between you has grown just enough for you to start regaining clarity, confidence, or independence. That is not coincidence. That is pattern awareness. They may sense this change directly, especially if they still have access to your social media or mutual connections. Even subtle signs like you appearing happier, less reactive, or more focused on your own life can trigger their return. Your growth challenges the narrative they once held about you being available, predictable, or emotionally tied to them. At the same time, their timing can also be influenced by what is happening on their side. If other sources of attention or validation have faded, they may circle back to familiar ground. Not because you are their priority, but because you are known, accessible, and once responsive. It is less about choosing you and more about choosing what feels easy to re enter. What makes this timing so effective is that it often catches you off guard. Just when you are starting to feel steady again, their message interrupts that progress. It creates a moment of emotional disorientation where your past and present collide. And in that moment, they are watching, whether consciously or instinctively, to see how quickly you shift your attention back to them. Understanding this removes the illusion of coincidence. It helps you see that their return is not driven by transformation, but by opportunity. Boundaries matter more than explanations because explanations keep you emotionally engaged, while boundaries create emotional distance. When a narcissist reaches out after silence, there is often a strong pull inside you to explain what you felt, what went wrong, why you stepped away, or what you need now. It feels like clarity will protect you or finally make them understand. But in this dynamic, explanations do not create understanding, they create access. Every time you explain yourself, you are opening a door. You are offering information about your feelings, your limits, and your expectations. And instead of respecting that, they often use it to move around your boundaries more effectively. Your words become something they can reinterpret, minimize, or even use against you later. What feels like healthy communication on your side becomes material they can use to keep the interaction going. Boundaries, on the other hand, do not require their agreement or understanding. A boundary is not a discussion, it is a decision. It is the difference between saying, I need space because I was hurt, and simply not engaging at all or responding in a way that does not invite further conversation. One seeks validation, the other enforces self respect. This is where many people get stuck because it feels uncomfortable not to explain. It can feel rude, incomplete, or even unfair. But the truth is, you are not responsible for making them understand your boundaries. You are responsible for maintaining them. And in situations like this, clarity is not something you give through words. It is something you demonstrate through consistent action. When you shift from explaining to enforcing, you stop negotiating your well-being. Curiosity and nostalgia are two of the strongest forces used to reopen a door that was slowly closing. When a narcissist reaches out after silence, the message is often shaped in a way that feels light, familiar, or emotionally loaded, just enough to stir something inside you. It may not be dramatic or intense, it may be subtle, almost harmless, but that subtlety is what makes it effective. Curiosity pulls you in first. You start wondering why they reached out now, what they want, whether something has changed, or if there is something you missed. That mental loop creates an internal tension that feels like it needs resolution. And the easiest way to relieve that tension is to respond. But the moment you do, you move from observing the situation to being back inside it. Then nostalgia follows. Memories of good moments, shared experiences, or emotional highs begin to surface. The mind has a way of softening the past, especially when enough time has passed. You may start remembering how things felt at their best, rather than how they consistently were. That emotional recall can create a sense of longing, making the present moment feel like an opportunity to reconnect rather than a repetition of a pattern. Together, curiosity and nostalgia create a powerful emotional pull. One makes you want answers, the other makes you want feelings, and both can blur your ability to see the situation clearly. What often gets overlooked in that moment is the full picture, the confusion, the inconsistency, and the reasons you needed distance in the first place. Recognizing these triggers is not about denying your emotions, but about understanding how easily they can be activated. Because once you see that pull for what it is, you gain a moment of choice before acting on it.